Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I wanted to talk about how to build a GPU neocloud. I'm not sure how many of you aspire to build a GPU neocloud, so I'll try to reflect on Nebius's journey over the course of the last 1.5 years or so, and try to bring out the lessons that we learned, which we hope, and I hope, would be applicable to most of you, whatever the stage you are at in your business. So we started with a relatively simple premise, right? How do you build a GPU neocloud? You hoard some GPUs, and you hope for the profit at the end of the tunnel. The only thing you need to figure is phase 2. That was pretty much the plan with which us, Nebius, GPU stealing gnomes, started the business. When we started figuring out the phase 2, it turned out to be way less simple. We had to build a great product. We had to bring it to the US. We had to create the brand awareness. We had to hire a great sales team. We had to automate, we still do, and we had to make the AI accessible. So step 1, build a great product. Turns out for us it was easier than for most, because from our dramatic birth story we inherited one of the brightest engineering teams in the industry. So we started with making a complex product for sophisticated customers, which turned out to be simpler than building a product which is accessible for all. Our product was relatively recently ranked as in the second tier of the industry ranking, and we're used by leading AI players worldwide. What have we learned? Well, lesson number 1, play to your strengths. If you are great, your team has a history, and that history determines what you're best at. If you're best at engineering, start with engineering product. If you're best at sales, start with sales. Lesson number 2, leverage your network for customers. Having a large network among the venture capitalist world and the Russian-speaking tech community in the Valley and beyond helped us a lot. We found some early adopters who helped us refine the product later on. And then lean into their needs. The way you arrive at a great product is that you listen carefully to your customers. You embrace especially the criticism, which is hard to hear, but is the most useful type of feedback you can possibly get. And work hard to productize those things that they ask you to do to make them accessible to all of your customers. The next challenge was bringing the product to the US. Because of our history, we started off in Europe, and then we quickly found out that most of our customers are in the US, because US collectively accounts for 80 to 90% of overall AI investments. So we had to swim across the ocean to actually bring the product to our customers. The things we learned while doing so are the following. First of all, if you're going to enter a new market, start by spending ample time on the ground. We started spending time in the Valley long before we decided to invest into our first data center. It took about a year. Challenge the constraints. We were told that you cannot sell overseas capacity to the US. Turns out it's not true. You cannot sell it for all the purposes, but you can totally sell training capacity located in Europe to the US customers. You need to just talk to them and challenge the constraints that are given to you. And then when you commit, you have to commit with conviction. Once we made a decision to go to the US, it took us just a few months to open the first data center, which we did a couple of weeks ago, and we're already in the process of building a 300 megawatt site in New Jersey, which would be our second site in the US. Create brand awareness. We are in a weird situation that the team behind Nebius has worked together sometimes for decades, but Nebius as a brand is 1.5 years old. So we had the awareness challenge. People didn't know who we were. We needed to create this brand awareness, which we're still doing today, but the lessons we learned from that are the following. So first of all, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. You will probably not find a city outside of San Francisco where people try to sell software and tech products via billboards. But surprisingly, don't underestimate the power of billboards on 101. We actually had sales made to people who saw our billboard and just reached out. Second, Make it personal and own your story. We stem from a big Russian famous tech firm, which in a dramatic set of events starting in 2022, launched us into the journey in which we are today. Turns out that telling personal stories and the story of our birth, our own personal dramas, that worked way better to connect to people than just showing a brand book. And then most publicity is good publicity. Since English is not our native language for most of us, we made silly mistakes, including, for instance, typos on our swag, which, by the way, made for great viral content because people took pictures of that and made fun of us. And that publicity is also good publicity because it builds awareness. Step 4, build a team. Since we're selling mostly to the US-based customers, we had to build a US-based marketing and sales team from scratch, which meant going from 1 employee in the US in July 2024 to more than 40 people in less than 9 months. And we had the privilege of getting the people who had experience working for the leaders of the industry, both on the hardware side, for other neoclouds, for major hyperscalers and whatnot. The lessons we learned from there are these. First of all, if you can afford it, try to work with an in-house recruiters team. You can then ask them to focus on the specific profiles and on specific teams that you need. They will work in a way more targeted way than most external recruiters. Second, go the extra mile for the A players. We wanted the best people in the industry. Guess what? The best people in the industry are expensive and demanding. Lean into their demands. They're worth it. The third lesson is be ready to change yourself. Research has shown that most organizations cannot grow by more than 30% year over year in headcount while maintaining their own culture. If you're preparing for explosive growth, your culture will change. Embrace it. It's inevitable and it's not a bad thing. You have to be open to, merge the culture of people incoming with your own and arrive at something new. Automate. When you're building something, you don't know how it's going to work. So the first sales, the first product outreaches, the first conversations are always going to be done by hand. With time, you figure out the right way to do it. But then automate, right? The process should be you figure out the stuff you want to do, and then you automate it to make it as smooth for your customers as possible. And then also try to think where the puck will be. Because if you reflect on the state of the AI industry, it's in the state of overblown investment and underblown revenue. It will not stay that way forever. So try to think how the industry may change, what are the scenarios, and try to spend at least share of your resources to prepare for the future, not only to run your business today. Make AI accessible. There's no shame in borrowing ideas from others. So we do sometimes develop our products in a way which we've seen in the market. For instance, we recently moved also into inference pay-per-token type of space, which allows us to target the earliest stage startups who just need an endpoint for a model and some market-leading open source AI model to work with. What we learned from that is, first of all, it's okay to borrow ideas. Your product development does not have to be unique. You just have to do it better than everybody else. Tech in general is based on a time-based advantage, meaning your product is as good as the amount of feedback and iterations which went into it. So if you start iterating faster than the rest, you'll get there. The important learning is don't cut too many corners, because we did. The thing which we would not do today, if we had to do it all over again, we would not make the inference product and the GPU cloud product entirely separate, because that creates confusion among customers. And that basically are probably the most generic things that we learned in the last 1.5 years. And I hope they would help some of you with building your own early stage products. Thank you.